This is our third session so far. We've had two sessions. We had two sessions last week, so we're going to be continuing from where we stopped. All right. So I hope we all are doing very well. We've at least gone through the materials and the recording for the previous classes. For those that missed the previous classes, I hope the recording was uploaded almost immediately, so you had enough time to go through that, and I believe that shouldn't be an issue. So we're going to be moving forward with what we have for today. But before we go into today's class, I would really not like to waste much time discussing other things because we have to cover a lot today. Like we have to finish Python basics today and then move on to advanced concept in Python, right? So I want us by next week or by the sixth session, we are done with introduction to Python, and then we move on to libraries that we're going to be using for data analysis and data science. All right, so I'll just have to say a few things before we kick off. First off, the assignment I gave last week. So from what I'm seeing, a lot of us submitted the assignments, right? But there's a disparity between those that attempted the assignment on the Google form and those that submitted on the platform. Right? I made this clear last week that in the instruction I gave that you'd have to first submit your assignment to the Google form. So that is where you are answering the questions, right? You need to submit there, and you have to also come back to the platform and then turn in your assignment. All right. So it's very, very important. So for this particular assignment, the reason why I didn't talk about uploading links so much was because it's optional, basically. Like it will make it easier for me to see your assignment. It's actually optional. If you uploaded a link, fine. If you didn't, fine. So the link upload that I talked about last week was for Jupyter Notebook assignment. So that is what I'm going to be giving us moving forward. Right. So after tomorrow's class, the assignment we're going to be having is not going to be in this format. We're not going to be doing Google Form options and all of that, right? We're going to be taking a different approach where you'd be actually writing code and practicing what we've done and submitting it. So if you've not gone through the first video where I showed us how to upload it to Google Drive and all of that, copying the link and bringing it to the platform and turning it in from there, please go to the first video, right? It should be in the introductory part of the video, right? So I believe everyone is aligned with that, right? So we're not going to be doing what we normally do previously was that before the start of every class, I do a kind of assignment correction. So we quickly go over the assignment and I look at I look at the questions and we answer it together, right? So for those people that might need something like that, so it's just basically to get us involved and clear us on areas that we might be confused, all right, as pertaining the assignment. So that's just it for the assignment. So second thing I want to discuss is regarding issues that have been coming up throughout this week. I honestly can't answer everybody's question. And sometimes when I don't answer your question, it's either because someone else has answered your question, right? Someone had the same issue and it has been answered, or I'm working on it, right? So most of the issues that are in the group that I've seen were pertaining to the platform. Some people were saying that they can't see the assignment. I think that should be the major one, right? So most people are saying they can't see the assignment, and the other ones were as regards submission, so which got a lot of answers. For the assignments, for those that have not seen the assignments, I honestly don't know why you are not seeing it, right? Because if someone else can see the assignment uploaded, you should be able to see it as well. All right. There is no place where they excluded some persons from seeing the assignment. So it probably would be on your own end. You can, let's say, try a different browser, log out, log in, check your internet connection and all of that. So just try different things, because it is definitely not on our end, right? The assignment has been uploaded and available for everybody that is in that class, unless you are not you've not been assigned to data science class. As long as you've been assigned to data science class, you should see the assignment, right? So I hope you figure out a way to you figure out something around fixing the issue, because it's not from our end. I've met the people involved, and my team basically they said the same thing, that you should check your internet connection and just check to be sure that it's not a fault from your own end. All right, so I think that is all I can pick for now. I can't go on discussing every single thing. Every other thing that needs to be talked about, I'm going to address it in the group. So let's focus on our class. That's why we are here today. So I'm going to be kicking off immediately. But before we do that, please, can someone just quickly remind me what we did last week and where we stopped? What did we do last week and where did we stop in the last class? All right. Um, okay, so I can see some responses. Type of data in Python. Okay. All right. So in the last class, we looked at we introduced Python to us, right? So we looked at the overview of Python, what Python is, like what it is used for, its application, and all of that, right? We also went into the syntax and indentation. I made sure I explained what syntax mean, right, in a broad sense, and also brought it down to Python as well, right? We talked about syntax, talked about indentation, and how indentation is important in Python. So these are the foundation, the foundation that you need to have, right, before becoming a data scientist or a Python developer, or a Python programmer. So we also looked at variables and data types. Okay, I talked about variables. I used illustration of a bag or a container that holds in data. Right, so variables and data type goes hand in hand, right? They are used together. I explained to us how we can assign a value to a variable using what? An assignment operator. So all these things are things that we looked at in the last class. If you've gone through the video again, I'm pretty sure that the memory and everything will still be fresh. So there's just something I want to say quickly. I would advise us to always go over this video, right? Even if you are in the live class, I would advise us to go over the video once. And when you are going over the video, it's possible that during the live class you might not things might be moving too fast. I might not be able to come back to explain some things and all of that. But during the recording, going through the recording, you can pause and try to grasp some concepts, understand some things that were said. Take notes. Very, very important. Please, if possible, right? It's not compulsory, but if possible, try and be taking notes. Okay, when you're building yourself on something that you have no idea about, it's very, very, very important that you learn to take notes. So when you get to an advanced level, you can actually probably not decide to take notes. You already grasp the idea and the concept of what you're learning, right? But now you are building yourself. Have a note basically, right? Take notes, jot things down like the basics and all of that we'll be looking at. Help you a lot, trust me, it will help you. So let's move straight to what we have for today. I am really moving very fast because I need us to cover this material and move on to the next one in tomorrow's class. So today we are going to be looking at okay, we looked at data type and all of that. So today we are going to be looking at mutable. We'll start from mutable and immutable data types, right? So it's basically a continuation from where we stopped. So this material that you're seeing now, it's already uploaded on the resources, material and resources group. So I believe everybody has access to that, and that shouldn't be a problem. So if you want to follow, you can actually follow along, right? Just open it up on your system and then follow from there. Okay, I missed something as well. So the class rep election of the class rep will be this week. So after Sunday's class, I'm going to drop the details and everything that's going to lead to that, right? So you have an idea on how we're going to do that. So if you are interested in taking up that responsibility, just prepare yourself. Trust me, it's with every responsibility, there is always should I say an advantage that comes with it, right? So it's going to be should I say, or it's going to be of benefit to you, right? So, but I won't go into that. But we're going to be having our class rep. At least by next class, we should have our class rep. By next class, we should have elected a class rep and an assistant as well. So more details on that later. Like, let's just focus on class, right? So we're going to be starting with mutable and immutable data types. Okay. So please, if I'm going too fast, let me know. If I'm going too fast, let me know. There's a reason we have the live class chat. I'm constantly interacting or constantly getting feedback the live class. So whatever it is that you're saying, just know that I'm seeing them, and it is helping inform me on how to go about the class, right? So I'm not blind to whatever it is that you're saying. So please, if I move too fast or if I'm speaking too fast, just let me know on the live chat. All right. So great. So we're going to be looking at, we'll start from mutable and immutable data types. So now we talked about some data types yesterday. We talked about integer, float, string, and the rest. So there is a particular set of data types that I introduced to us, which are sequences, right? We call them sequences. So can just, as a refresher, can someone just list like 3 of those sequence data types that we talked about in the last class? Just quickly, like this is just a refresher, basically. Like 3 of those sequence data type or collection data types that we talked about in the previous class. Please, let's be quick with the response. Let's be quick with the response. All right, great. So sequence are basically, the sequence data types are basically list, dictionary, tuple, set. All right. So these are the sequence data types. But we also have string is actually a sequence as well, and we're going to look into that and see why it is a sequence. Right? But let's quickly, there's a reason I brought that up, right? So we'll come back to that. But let's look at mutable versus immutable data types. So what are immutable data types? These are data types that you can't change the value once created. Okay, so you know what immutability is. Immutability is a characteristics of something that that basically mean you can't change that thing. That thing can be changed if that thing has if it exists in a certain state, you can't change it. It remains in that particular state for as long as it can, or for as long as possible. Okay, that is what immutability basically means. Why mutability is the opposite, meaning that you can actually change something from one state to another, right? Basically, like manipulating the content, right? And just that's basically what immutability and immutability mean in a broader sense. So bringing it to Python, as regarding the data types that we have, there are data types that are immutable, while there are some data types that are mutable. So when we looked at data types in the last class, there was a reason why we had arrays. We have varieties of data types, right? Because they have different characteristics. And this mutability and immutability is a characteristics that these data types have, right? So now, for immutable data type, once you, let's say, create a particular value pointing to a data type, you can't change it. The only thing you can do is just to set another value. If you want like to have a different value, you just need to set it or create another variable with that particular data type. But changing that particular data type is not going to be possible. All right. So just keep that at the back of your head. When we start demonstrating, you understand what I'm saying. So for mutable data type, they can be changed after it has been created. So you can see on the screen we have for immutable data types, we have integer, we have float, we have string, and we have tuple. All right. So you can't change these things, right? Once you've created them, you've created them. You just have to use them as you've created them. Why for mutable data types? Once you create them, you can actually still manipulate them. You can actually still change the values of those data types. All right. So someone just sent a message that drew my attention. There are some functionalities in the platform that we are not using yet. For the scheduled live classes, we'll begin using it very soon. But for now, let's just be using Telegram, right? Once this, because the thing is that the platform is still under development, right? Not everything is functional at the moment. So once it is ready for use, I will let everyone know. But for now, let's just stick to Telegram and look out for information on Telegram, right? Although I put some information and assignment and all of that on the platform. And for also for the attendance is going to go it's going to come up by 5, and as usual close by 5:30. So keep that at the back of your mind as well. So let's go to the next thing now. I'm going to demonstrate everything, but let me quickly go through this. Now we're going to look at type conversion. All these things are still pertaining to data types, right? So there are just different ways to interact with data types and the behaviors of data types we've looked at. So type conversion basically means changing one data type to another. So if we have an integer, it's possible to convert that integer to what? To a float. All right. If we have a float, we can convert that float to what? An integer. If we have an integer, we can convert that integer to a string. So type conversion is a possibility in Python where you can convert from one data type to another data type. All right. So understanding variables and data types is fundamental in Python, as they are the building blocks of the language. So we already know what these variables and data types are. Now, probably you want to convert one data type to another data type. Yes, Python allows for that, right? And that's what we're going to be looking at. So type conversion is actually also known as typecasting, So if someone says and you should cast a particular data from an integer to a float, what they mean is basically to convert that data type from this particular type to another particular type. Okay. So in Python, it's very straightforward. So all these things that I'm going to be looking at, the implementation is actually very simple. What you just need to learn is the syntax, right? Make sure you are not breaking the rules of Python or breaking the syntax rule. Make sure you are following the syntax correctly, and you get what you want, right? So in Python, converting from one data type to another is actually very easy. So you use functions, like built-in functions, to do that. So we have functions like int, we have functions like float, we have functions like string, and many more. So this is an example of conversion. So let's say we want to convert from an integer to a float. We can set a variable. In this case, we have an integer value, which now sets this 42 to. Then let's say we want to convert this 42 to a float. So using this float function, we can convert this integer value to a float. So I kind of did a brief explanation of functions or introduction. So we are going to be introducing us to several functions, right, for now, until we get to function, we get to explain functions properly. But for now, just know that there are some things called function that allows you to perform some allow you to do some things in Python. So one of those functions is this float function, right? What it does is it allows you to typecast. It allows you to cast a value to a float, right? Mostly from an integer to a float. Okay. So although there are restrictions to converting data types, right? There's some data types that you can actually convert to another. So you just have to keep that at the back of your mind. It's not everything that allows for conversion. So it is the conversion that makes sense that is allowed. So you can't just convert, let's say you want to convert a dictionary to an integer. It doesn't make sense. Where are you going to start from, right? So it has to be a reasonable conversion. So for example, you want to convert an integer to a float. Yes, it's possible. Well, what happens here is just that a decimal point is added and then 0 is added and then it's automatically a float. Okay, so you can convert from a float to an integer. So we use the int function. So we use the int function. The int function basically takes in the float value that you want to convert and then it truncates all the values after the decimal point and retain the whole number. That's how it does it, right? It truncates removes all the values after the decimal point and retain the whole number here. That is how this particular function converts from float to integer. You can also convert from string to integer. Okay, so let's say, for instance, you have a string that is actually that comprised of numbers, right? Remember I told you that string is not necessarily a text. A string data type is a value that is surrounded by quotes. So once that thing is surrounded by quotes, it automatically becomes a string. Let me just go here and showing us as I'm explaining that. So for instance, now let's say I want to create a string value. I'll come and say my string. Now this is a string, right? String 1. So what makes this a string now is because we have quotes at the beginning and we have quotes at the end. Not because this is a text, all right? Not necessarily because it's a text. It's because we have a quote at the beginning and a quote at the end. And another thing is that you can have your string to have either double quote or single quote. So I can come and say string 2. So in this case, you see that we have double quote here, all right? And in this second example, we have single quote. Python sees it the same, all right? There's no difference for Python. Both of them are the same string, So whether you use double quotes or whether you use single quotes, they are still both strings. I hope that is very clear. So don't get confused when maybe I use double quotes while giving an example in a particular place, and then after some time, you now see me using single quotes. They are the same thing. There's no difference. So, but there are situations where you might want to use a particular quote. We'll get to that later on, but this is just basically what a string is. So the reason why I brought this up was because you can have something like this. My string theory. So you can see that you can see what I explained in the last class when it comes to naming of variable. You can see how I'm putting in underscore here to join the different components of my variable name together. So I have my string theory. So to make it look presentable and easy to understand, I just have to separate them. I don't give space. Like in space is something that will give you a lot of problem in Python, right? And there's something that we call space, like the technical name for space in programming. I think I mentioned it in the last class. Can someone remind us? When we talk about space, there's a name that it is given. Okay, I think you might confuse it with something else. Exactly. I think someone got it. It's called white space. White space, right? So any kind of space is like normal space that you know when you press space bar or your tab is white space. So an indentation is a different thing entirely. It's a use of space for a particular purpose, right? So just get that clear. So now let me just chip in something. So we have two kinds of naming convention in programming generally, right? So we have two kinds. We have what we call snake case. Let me comment this out. Okay. We have variable naming conventions. So we have let me use snake case, and we have camel case. So in programming generally, we have two ways in which we can name anything, right? The first one is snake case. Snake case is one I've been demonstrating since. It has to do with using underscore to join your different the different components of your name, of that variable name. So for instance, in this case, I want to name my variable let's say first variable. Come here and say first. Everything will be in small letter, but the space between them is going to be replaced by an underscore. I'll say first variable. So this is the way to name your variable using snake case. So I can just give several examples. Let's say second variable. So you can see this is how you can name a variable. So the second one, camel case. In this camel case, the first letter of a word is usually capital letter. But the difference between it and aside that, the other difference is that there is no space in camel case. So the camel case uses capitalization of each word to kind of distinguish between a particular word and another word. So in this case, let me use first variable as the same example. If I want to write it in camel case, I'll come and make F capital letter and say first. Then instead of putting underscore, I'm going to put variable, but V is going to be in capital letter, right? So I'm going to have something like this. So this is camel case style of naming variables, right? So we can come here and can also have second variable. All right, so these are the two ways in which you can name things generally, not just variables. There are a lot of things that you can name, class and variables and a lot of other things, function and the rest. right? But where we are at right now is I'm just naming a variable. So when you want to name variable, preferably you use your snake case, right? For consistency. I think that is what the conventional way of doing that. So you use your snake case. Camel case is usually mostly used when naming class. So there's an aspect of Python that has to do with creation of class. It doesn't concern you at this point, right? So I'm just giving an example of where we use camel case. But snake case is the most common, and that's what you should be using in naming your variables. Okay, is the conventional way and most accepted way of doing that. Okay, so I just needed to explain that so you understand how I got to this point. So what brought us here was basically strings. So let's say, for instance, we have a string that has numbers as the contents. So I'll come here and have 1, 2, 3, 4. So this also is a string. Because the content of this string are numbers, doesn't mean this is not a string. What makes this a string is because the numbers are like covered in quotes, whether single quotes or double quotes. Like, I hope that is clear, all right? So this is basically what a string is. So don't get confused, because you might see something like this and you might say, okay, because they're actually numbers, then it can be an integer. No, as far as you can see quotes around it, it's a string. Let's even take this example, like father, right? Let's come and define another variable here. My string 4. Come here and say so okay, I just wanted to show you something. So because we can have anything surrounded by quotes, doesn't mean you just apply it anyhow, right? So Python actually looks at context, right? So in this case, let's say you have a list and you want to cover it with quotes. It won't work. Remember, I told you something initially, that it is not every data type that can be converted to another data type. We'll get there. All right, but this is basically just what a string is. Anything that is surrounded by a quote is a string. So I wanted to show you an example here of surrounding a list by a quote. It won't work, right? Because for obvious reason, like there's no need having a list in quotes, right? So these are the things that you come to understand later. There are nuances in Python that you only get to understand by practicing. You only get to understand by doing stuff and just having yourself play around and getting your hands dirty with different codes, right? So let's just move ahead because of time. So this is what a string is, and you can convert a string to an integer by using the int function. So let's come over here. So we have a string here, okay? And I want to convert this particular string to an integer. How do I do that? So I'll basically just come here and use the int function. I'll come and say int, and then put my variable or the value I want to convert to a string. My string rather. My string. So in this case, you see that this particular thing we have here is a string, but now using this int function, I've converted it to an integer. Okay, I've converted it to an integer. Let me print out the different data types so you understand what I'm saying. So can someone just remind us quickly of the function that we can use to know the data type of a value? We said it in the last class. There's a function that we use to know the data type of a particular value. Exactly. So we use type. So I want to just type out the data type here. So the data type of my string I have to print it out. Remember that in Jupyter Notebook, the only thing that is automatically printed out is the last statement in that particular cell. So anything that precedes it would not be automatically printed out. So for you to get this thing printed out, or you need to see the output, you need to use print statement. That's why I added it here. So I'm going to just run this, and you can see that this particular value here is a string. And when we converted it, I can come here and say, let me just assign a variable. Say my int, right? So I'll come and say type, let's print it. Type my int. So you can see that we did a conversion now, and we use the type function to know the data type of that particular value before conversion and after conversion. So you can see before conversion it's a string, and after conversion it now becomes an integer. So these are some of the things that you can do with type conversion. You can convert string to integer. You can convert that same integer to string. So I'm not going to show us everything, but I think with this example, you get the idea of how to do the conversion. So let's just move on. So you can convert a string to a float by using the float function. So it's like we've already discussed that. Just passing the value to the function, and it will do the conversion for you. You can convert an integer to a string. You can convert a float to a string. Now, let's move on to the next set of conversions. So these are the ones that I think we'll be paying more attention to. So you can convert some sequences to another set of sequence. You can convert a sequence to another sequence, all right? But as I said before, there are restrictions to how much we can do in conversion. So it's not everything. You can't just convert any data type to another data type, right? There are use cases where you need to convert. So those are the things that will determine if you can do conversion in Python, not just randomly converting it into whatever it is you like. So the first one here is converting lists to set. Okay, so we all know what a set is. We've let me go back here. We demonstrated it in the last class. A set is determined by a particular bracket. And what kind of bracket is that? Let's interact. What kind of bracket is a set identified with? Exactly, right. So it's a curly bracket, right? So in this case, we have a list and want to convert this list to a set. Python makes that possible. And what we do is use the set function. So we have the set function here. All right. So the set function takes in the argument or the value that it wants to convert. In this case, it's the list. So we'll bring our list and just pass it into this function and then run. So what it does is that it takes the list and just changes the bracket from a square bracket to a curly bracket. So now we can now have, let's just set it to a variable. I set. So we now have you can see we now have two different values. We have the list and we have the set that was converted from a list. So this is just how you do conversion, right? You can convert from a list to set. You can convert from a string to list. So you can let me demonstrate this quickly. A string actually behaves like, or not necessarily behave. A string is a sequence, right? A string in Python is a sequence. It is not like an integer or a float. It's a sequence. Each letter in a string is assigned an index. So an index is a way to kind of organize stuff. So when you have a collection of items, for example, in this list, we have a collection of integers or values. The arrangement, there's a way it is arranged in a list. So the index is used to determine the location or the arrangement of those values. So the same thing applies to a string. A string, as different as it might be, right? You might be seeing it as a word. It's actually a sequence as well. All right. So you can do the same thing you can do on a list on a string. So let me come here and show you what I mean. So let me bring the first string that we had. So we have string 1. I think this is the value here. So if I try to convert this string 1, I can actually try to convert this string 1 to a list and it will work. What Python does when converting is that it looks at each of the elements in that string. You might be wondering, what do you mean by each of the elements? Right? A string is just a single word, right? No, a string is a collection of different letters, or a text rather, or whatever it is in that string, whether numbers or letters or what have you, is a collection of different elements. It can be letters, numbers, or whatever. So in this case, it's a collection of different letters. So we have S, we have T, we have R, we have I, we have N, we have G, we have hyphen, we have 1. So each of them are like, each of them behave like a single value. All right. So when you convert a string to a list, Python separates everything and then make each of them a single element. So let me just show you what I mean. If I come here and see list, you can see what I mean now. I've converted that string to a list. So each of the letters in this particular string is extracted from that string and assigned or is made to behave like an element in a string, right? So this is just how you convert string to list. So it might actually sound strange because we've probably been seeing string as an whole entity that cannot be separated, but no. You can do all the things you can do on a list. Most things, not necessarily, or some of the things you can do on a list or other sequences, you can perform them on a string as well. So let's move on. So you can convert a string to a list. You can convert an integer list to a string list. So this is still the same thing, converting an integer list to a string list. So this is actually more advanced. When we look at for loop, you're going to understand this better, but this is just an example of conversion that we're talking about. So type conversion is a powerful tool in Python, which allows you to manipulate and work with data in various formats. So because I said that you can convert a data type to another, that doesn't mean you should just go and bring a dictionary and another this thing, let's say an integer, and try to convert this to that. It won't work. You need to have a reason for the conversion, right? You need to know, okay, why do I want to convert this to this? Why do I want to convert a list to a string, right? Python doesn't just allow you to do the conversion randomly, right? There are some things that might be restricted, but there are ways to bypass those things, right? You need to go the extra step. Like in this case, you want to convert an integer list to a string list. You see, we didn't just use a function, right? The list function directly. We have to go through this thing here is called list comprehension, right? We have to use the for loop and some other concept in Python to achieve that. So for you to do some conversion, you have to you have to go through some different, you have to use some different methods or add some or do some additional perform some additional steps to achieve what you want to achieve. So, but the story of this is that you can basically convert from one data type to another data type. So I think that's actually clear enough. Don't worry, when I give us the assignment to drive home the points that I'm making, you're going to like implement some of these things on your own and to help you understand better what I've explained. So that's it for type conversion. So we've looked at immutability and mutability. Okay, I've actually not explained or implemented that. So let me go straight to immutable and mutable data types. So now I've explained what immutability is and what mutability is. So how do they work in Python? Like why do we even need to learn it, or what is the essence of having mutable data types and immutable data types? So let me just quickly list out the mutable data types we have and the immutable data types. All right, so we have mutable data types. For mutable data types, we have lists, we have stats, we have dictionary. So I think these are the ones we have. So for immutable data types, we have our integer, we have our float, we have string, okay, and we also have tuple. So these are the mutable and immutable data types. So like let's now give examples. So for instance, let's say you set a list. Let me bring back my list I said before. Let's use my list. So I bring back my list here, and I want to change the value in this my list. Let's say I want to change this number 3 here. I want to change it to something. Maybe I made a mistake initially and I want to like change that value to something else. I can actually I can achieve that using my list or using a list data type. So how we do that is just we use index. Okay. So indexing, as I explained before, is a way to organize elements in a particular collection. So a collection in this case can be a list, it can be a string, it can be a set, right? No, not a set. A set is not indexed. It can be a tuple. So if I come here and I just say okay, so the way we get indexes in Python is by using these square brackets, and then inside the square bracket, the number or the value we have there corresponds to the index in that list. So automatically, every element in a sequence starts from index 0. The first element is usually index 0. Second element is index 1. The third element is index 2. The fourth element is index 3, and so on and so forth. So that is basically how you can get the index of a value. So in this case, what can we say the index of 3 here is? So with what I just said now, what is going to be the index of 3? Exactly. So if I come here and say 2, you can see that it returned was 3. So index is basically like a form of search. So Python uses index to organize sequences. So when you want to extract a particular element, you use that index and it picks the element that corresponds to that index. If I come here and I say 0, is going to pick the first index, which is 1. If I come here and say 1, it's going to pick this particular index. Let me print out my list so you can just be following. Okay, so you can see the first one here is 0. So index 1 here corresponds to this 2. All right. So the last index here is 5. So what's going to be the index of 5 here? Exactly. So it's going to be 4. If I put the 4 in this bracket, I'm going to get that particular element. So the syntax for getting an index is that you add a square bracket after your variable name, opening and closing square bracket, and inside that square bracket, you indicate the index that you want to get. Okay, we will actually get more. We're going to build on this, but this is how you can get an index of an element. Okay, so this is just how we do that. Now, if I want to change, what brought us here was I want to change this particular value, number 3. So how I do that is that I extract the index of that element, which is going to be 2. Okay, and then I assign a new value to that index. So what is happening here is that Python is opening up or bringing up this particular index. If you now include an assignment operator, it takes the new value that is indicated there and pass it into that new index, replacing the former element in that particular index. So if I come and I put 7, what I did is that I just replaced 3 with 7. So if I come here and print my list, you can see that my list has been updated. It has been modified. Now I'm going to be having 7 in this index position 2. All right. So this is how you can modify a particular data type. For example, a list. And the ones that you can actually modify are the ones that are mutable. So a list is mutable. You can modify it. You can change the element in a list. Okay. So this is one of the behavior of data types in Python. So next, let's look at the next one we have here. So we have a set. So it's basically the same thing. But the thing is just that a set is not indexed. Sets are not actually indexed, right? I'm actually going to explain that moving forward, right? So there are reasons why it is like that. But just know that sets are not indexed. So if I come here and I say so this is my set now. Give me a minute, please. Okay, so if I come here and try to do the same thing that I did with list, and I want to index the first element with 0, you see I'm going to get an error. Are we following? I'm going to get an error here, and what this error is trying to say is that you can't actually index this particular data type. So the reason why sets are not indexed, let me just explain that. Instead of moving that forward, the reason why sets are not indexed because they are sets are unordered. They are unordered collections. So what index achieves, or what index is set to achieve, is orderliness, right? So you have an arrangement of something. An index is a way to kind of organize them. That okay, when you look at this position, you get this thing. When you look at this position, you get this thing. So lists are ordered, tuples are ordered, all right? Strings are ordered, but sets are not ordered, all right? It's because of its characteristics. Remember I said that sets, you don't have duplicate values in sets. So when you create a set, the way it is stored in memory is not the same way every other element like list, every other data types are stored. So it has to reconfigure the way it saves data so as to enable non-duplicate. Remember I said that sets prevent you from having duplicate value. So that is basically how sets are unordered collection. So you can actually index them or like perform the same operation, right? So we can actually add values to set, not because it is not subscriptable, doesn't mean you can actually add values. So let me be sure. Is everybody still following? Yeah, the attendance will be open now. That is just what I want to do now. So I'm just going to just give me some minutes. Okay, so you can assign your attendance now. Attendance is open, so it will be closing by 5:30. All right. So as I said, sets are not subscriptable. Subscriptable basically mean they can be indexed, but you can actually add elements and remove elements from a set. So the behavior is different, and we're going to look at it when we start looking at methods of different data types, methods and functions of data types. So I'm not going to look at it here. That was what I initially wanted to push this forward. So let's move on to the next one. We have dictionary. So a dictionary is another mutable data type. So remember, we can create a dict. I'll come and say my dict. So it's a key value pair data type. So we have a key name, can have Femi. All right. Can have let's say age, can have 34. Can have states, can have Lagos, the state. So let's just use, okay, let me just add one more thing. So I can have weight, I can have, let's say, 79 kg or 79, all right? Let me put it in string, so 79 kg. So this is a dict, all right? And a dictionary being mutable basically means that you can change the content. You can change the elements or the values in that dictionary. So in this case, let's say I created a dictionary and I want to change a particular value. Let's say, for instance, I want to change the age here. I can actually do that, right? But the way dictionaries are stored is different from the way lists are stored. It doesn't use indexing. What it uses is keys, right? If you want to get a value in a dictionary, you get that value by using its key. So in this case, the keys here are name, age, state, weight, and any kind of other keys that you might have in your dictionary. So the values are the corresponding values here. So if I want to get 34 here, I'm going to access it by calling age. If I want to get Lagos, I'm going to access it by calling state, right? So if I want to get anything in a dictionary, I would have to access it by calling the key. So the key here acts as an index, right? That is how dictionaries are like arranged. So the keys here act as an index. So if I come here and say my dict, right, I'll still use the same open and closing bracket, same way we use for list and indexing. So and I want to get the age of this particular, the age in this particular dictionary. I'll come here and type in the corresponding key. So you need to know the corresponding key for the value you want to get. So the corresponding key here is age. So if I type age here and I run it, you can see that I will be getting the corresponding value. Okay, so that is how to access values in a dictionary. You don't use indexing like you do for lists, all right? So you use the keys. So if I want to change this age now to a different value, I can actually do it the same way I did for lists. So I will assign this particular value or this particular key. I will assign a new value to this particular key by using the same syntax that we used before. So I'll just use the assignment operator. All right, please don't call this equal to in Python. In Python, this is not equal to. This is an assignment operator. This is an equal to here. An equal to is double equal to, quote unquote. So this is what an equal to is. This is what you call equal to in Python, right? If you leave Python and you are speaking generally, then you can call this equal to. But in Python, this is an assignment operator. Whenever you use it, Python is assuming that you want to assign a value to what? A variable or to something. So I come here and I say I want to change the age to, let's say, 43. And I run it. And I come back here and I print out my dict. You can see now that age here has changed. All right, you've changed age from what it was before. What was age before? Let me comment. What was age? Age was what? 34. Now I've changed it by using this method or by using this syntax to what? 43. So the ability to change the values in a data type is point at the mutability of those data types. That is what mutability. You can change the values in that data type. All right, I hope that's clear. Right? That's the general sense of it, right? So let's just give more examples. So let's say I want to change the state here. Just come and say state. I'll just put Abuja. All right, so the same thing here. If I come here and rerun it, you see that the state has changed. So it is not just replacing a value or changing a value. I can actually add values to these data types. I can add new values after I've created them. So mutability doesn't just mean changing something. It means just manipulating that particular thing. I can add more values. I can remove values. I can change values. I can just do as I want with that particular data type. That is what mutability is. So once we'll get to where we're going to look at how different data types behave and their different functionalities. So we're going to explore that better there. But for now, just have this at the back of your mind that we have mutable data types, and the mutable data types we have are list, set, and dictionary. So list indexed index data type. They are indexed, and you can access the elements using indexes. Okay. While set are unordered or they are not indexed. So you can actually access the element using index. All right, there's a different way to do that. You use different functions. You can use my set.add, my set.remove. So we're going to look at that later on. So there's a different approach to that. So for a dictionary, is also another mutable data type, and you access the values in the dictionary using the corresponding key. Okay, so you don't use indexes in dictionary. You use the corresponding key. So if you want to change a value, you bring out that particular key and then use the assignment operator to assign a new value to that particular key, right? It will automatically replace the value that was assigned to that key. Let's go to immutable data types, right? We have four of them. We have integer, we have float, we have string, and we have tuple. So we're actually just going to bypass integer and float. There is really nothing to talk about there. They're just single values, right? So if you want to replace it, just create another value, right? So the reason why we added is because obviously they are not mutable, so you will be considered as immutable data types. So let's jump to string. Remember I told us about how strings can be indexed as well. So let me bring up the string I had before. So I have this particular string. Let me change it. Okay, let me still use it. So I have this particular string, and I want to change a particular letter here. Let's say I misspelled a particular letter here, I misspelled it and I want to change it. So in this case, to access this particular letter I, how do I go about that based on what we've said so far? If I want to access this letter I in this string, how do I go about it? Exactly. So since I said that strings are indexed, you should automatically know that accessing any particular item in that string, and I've told you how each item in a string behave. They behave singly. They behave like elements in a list. So if you want to access a particular element in that string, you use indexing as well. All right. So let's come here. Let's say string, or my string rather, and I say 3. You can see that it returned what? The letter I. So this automatically tells you that strings are also indexed. So each of the values or each of the letters in this string now, they are assigned an index. So S here is index 0, T is index 1, R is index 2, 3, and so on and so forth. So when I want to access a particular value, I index them. All right. If I want to like access, let's say the last value, okay, there's actually a shortcut to access the last value instead of to start counting from the beginning. If you have a long string, instead of counting from the beginning, you just use -1. So -1 starts from the back. So like we already have people that know their onions, right? So this -1 starts from the back to index that particular item. So if I run this, you see that it returned what? 1 here. So if I put -2, it returned the second element from the back. So the same way you can start your index from the front using 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. You can also start your indexing from the back using starting from -1, then -2, -3, like that going forward. In situations where you have a very long list of elements, and you can't just start counting, and the item you want to get is towards the end, so it will be more better that you index from the back, right? So this is actually a way you can do that. So let's go back to it. So as I said, strings are immutable data types. You can actually change or manipulate them. So let's now say that I want to change this R in this string to a different element. So I can come here and use an index to bring out that particular element. I would say 3, which is I, right? And then use the assignment operator to, let's say, a different value. Let's just say O. You can see that we're going to have an error. Like this error basically tells us that string object does not support item assignment. Right? The whole grammar here is just trying to tell you that string is what? Immutable. You can't manipulate a string. Once you've created a string, you've created a string. You can't actually do any other thing. If you want to like change anything, you are better off creating a new string than manipulating a previous string, right? So that is just the idea behind mutability and immutability. Once you've created it, you can't do anything. You can't actually manipulate it again. So the string is one example of immutable data type. We also have tuple. So a tuple is an example of immutable data type. All right. So I think we all know what a tuple is. So I'm going to basically I'll convert that my list to my tuple using type conversion. Sorry, my tuple rather. Type conversion, right? So as I said, my tuple is an immutable data type. You can't like manipulate it, but it's actually indexed unlike sets. So you can actually index it, get an index of this immutable data type. But what you cannot do is to now change a value. So let's say I want to now change a value. Let me print out my tuple here. So I've printed out my tuple and I want to change this 7 back to 3. So if I come here and assign 3, and that should be 2, use the assignment operator, I'm going to get an error again. And what is the error telling me? Tuple object does not support item assignment. All right. You can manipulate a tuple. Like in a case where you need a data type that you can't change, you don't want anything to change the content, the best option for you is to use a tuple. Like you know that this particular data that you have is going to be there will be no change to this data. This data is going to be throughout the use throughout your use for that data type. Your best bet is to use a tuple because it cannot be changed. That data is going to remain until you discard it or until you are done with it. But if you use a list, it is very possible to actually manipulate the content of a list. So a list is used in cases where you are constantly changing the values in that list or the elements in that list. So depending on what you are doing, you're going to select the suitable data type for you. So that is basically the summary of mutable data types and immutable data types. We will build on this and we're going to look at other functionalities as regarding manipulation of your data type. So let's move forward. So we're going to now look at print statement. So the print statement is something we've been using since the beginning of this class. So I believe everyone here already know what the print statement does. So the print statement basically output information to your console, right? It allows you to see the content of what you are doing. So because everything that is being done in Python is stored in memory, everything is stored in memory. So you can't really know what that particular thing is, the content. So for you to see it, you can use the print statement. So you extract the content and displays it for you to see. All right. So that is just its basic use. You'll be using it almost every time. I feel this is going to be the most used function in Python, or the most used function actually in Python. All right. If you are coming from JavaScript, the equivalent of print statement is console.log. All right. So if you're coming from other programming languages, they have equivalent of this print statement. So what these functions do are just to output information to your console, right? So you can see exactly what you are doing, because you need to know you need to see what you are doing to know what you are doing, right? So that's what print statement does, and you can actually like use it like more stylishly, and that's what we're going to be looking at. So you don't just use it to print just print variables and just like the way we've been doing it since, right? There are ways we can actually use print statement. So for instance, let's say we have something like this. Okay, we have variable name. We have King Slim, and we have 12, Nigeria. So I can use print statements to incorporate these variables into a sentence. Okay, so I want to say something like this: Kingsley is from Nigeria. So I want to print out this statement to the console, and I have two variables. I have a variable name and I have a variable country. So I can basically come here and say print and then put the first variable, which is the name Kingsley, then comma. All right. So this is how you're going to join the different words together to give you a single sentence. So you use comma for that. If you don't put this comma, the print function is going to be confused on what to do. So now I would come and just type is, and I'll make sure I type this is as a string because you didn't define it anywhere. Then put another comma, and then I can just say is from. All right, put another comma and then type country. So if I run this, you see that print statement joins everything together and give you a single output. All right. So this is just an example of how you can also stylishly use the print function. Right. There's what we call string formatting. We're going to look at that moving forward as well. So the string formatting also does almost similar thing to what we just seen now, but in a more efficient way. Like this is what you're going to be using moving forward. You're going to be like using the string formatting. You're going to be using the print statement, and yeah, as someone said in the group, string concatenation, right? So we are going to look at all these things when we start looking at the different functionalities, different attributes of our data types. So that's just for the print statement. It's something you're already familiar with, so no need to go deep into it. Really, there's really nothing much to even talk about on that. So the next concept we're going to be looking at is comment and docstrings. So in any programming language, there are two things that that comprise a code, right? If you look at a particular code, you most likely see two different kinds of writings. Let me just put it that way, or two different kinds of text. You have your normal code that is highlighted, that is giving you different colors and all of that, that performs action and just do what you want it to do. And you also have what we call comments. Comment is the non-code part of your code. Let me just put it that way. So comments are those texts that you add to your code to explain what your code is doing. So that's the original intent of comments. So when you're writing a code, you are writing your code for most likely for someone else to use or for yourself to use later on. So it's very, very normal that you might even forget what the intent of that code was when you wrote it. It might be something you wrote maybe let's say a year ago, few months ago, or even you wrote your code and you gave it to another person to like go through it, or the person has to like do some refactoring and work on it. So for that person to understand what your code is doing, like for them to easily understand what your code is doing, you need to include comments. Okay, comments are those at the aspect of your code that explains what your code does. So if I'm writing something like this, I come here and I'm writing this variable name, country, and I'm printing out this, I can easily come here and write a comment. So this thing that I have here now that has hashtag in front of it is actually a comment, right? So let me remove that and just start from scratch explaining. So how you write comments in Python is by starting with an hashtag. So you start by typing hashtag. So once you type hashtag, anything that comes before or anything that comes after the hashtag is considered a comment in Python. So Python doesn't run those those things as code anymore, but rather it is seen as a comment. So even if I write a code in front of this hashtag, it is not going to be executed because Python interpreter will see it as a comment and it will skip it or ignore it. So the intent or the purpose of comments in Python is to explain what this code is. So I can come here now and say, creating a name and country variables. All right. So the comment here now explains what this code coming after it does. So, or what the code is, right? So what I wrote here is that I'm trying to create a name and country variables. So I come here and now write my code name, right, and country variable. I can now come here and say printing out the variables in a sentence, right? Whatever it is that you want to do. So the essence is that you use comments to explain what you are trying to do. So a good practice while coding is that you always include comments in your code, always, right? The assignment I'm going to be giving us, comment is going to be part of your mark. If you don't include appropriate comments, it's going to affect your overall score. So I'm going to be giving that you'll see that in the instruction, right? So it's just to help you create that good practice while writing your code. Because there's some code that you see from beginning to the end, no comments. It is going to be very difficult to pass through that code to kind of understand what that code is doing. But once you have comments all over, the comment is explaining that this code is going to do this thing, this function will do this thing, this one, it will be so much easier for you. All right. So the other use case of comments in Python is to like prevent a particular code from executing. So let's say I have a code here, this particular code, country, assigning Nigeria to country, and I don't want Python to execute this code for some reasons. I can come here and press Control /, all right, Control /. What it does is that it automatically, it comments out that code by adding this hashtag at the back. So once I run my code now, let me delete this first. So once I run my code, it's going to skip this particular country assignment part. And then when it comes to the print statement, the country is not assigned and then it gives you an error, right? So the comment can also be used to skip a particular code from being executed. Okay, so you might be testing something in your cell and you don't want that particular code to be executed. You can just comment it out, or you want to wait to execute it later, or you can comment it out. So comment can be used to explain what your code is doing. It can also be used to prevent a particular code from being executed. So anything that has hashtag in front of it is going to be considered a comment and is going to be skipped from execution. So I feel that is clear enough. You're going to be using comments and you're going to be using comments as we proceed in your assignment and in the different demonstrations and implementations that we're going to be doing moving forward. So I think I was doing it before. Some of us that are not familiar might be wondering what this is. So at this point, I feel that is going to be much clearer. So comments, as I've explained, they start with a hash mark, right, as we call it, hashtag, and extend to the end of the line. So anything that follows that hashtag, it's going to be ruled out of execution. So this is basically what a comment is. So a comment can actually start in any part of a line. It can start at the beginning, it can start even after a code. So you see in this case, we have a code assignment, I'm assigning 5 to X, and after that code now have hashtag. So after this particular hashtag, anything that comes in front will be considered a comment. But this code that we have here is not going to be included in the comment, right? Because it is before this particular hashtag. So this hashtag is like the starting point of any comment in Python. So if I come here and I put an hashtag here, I write this is a comment. So you can see that there's a way the syntax is. It's actually different from the code syntax, telling you that okay, this thing is not going to be executed, right? So the code that we have here is on the same line with this comment, but the reason why it is not considered as part of the comment is because it is before the hashtag. If I come and put the hashtag here, you see that everything here will be ruled out like as code. So we're going to be having all this line from the beginning to the end considered comments, right? Considered as a comment. So that's how we use comments in Python. So you can extend it to multiple lines. Let's say you want to like explain, you have a long explanation for what your code does. You can actually have multiple lines of comments and just explain what you are doing, right? So it might not necessarily just be one line, it might be multiple lines and as many as you want for your code. So we have what we also call docstrings. Docstrings is more like a comment, but it's different. So docstring is used in explaining what your function do. So as I said, we're going to look at function in subsequent classes. I believe at that point you understand and appreciate it better. But docstring is like also a comment, but the similarity between the two is that they are not executed. Right? Anything that is included in a docstring or a comment, they are not executed by Python. All right, they are ignored. But the difference with docstring is that a docstring actually is actually stored in Python so that you can call it when you want. So let's say you want to use a function and you don't understand what that function do. You can actually call the function docstring. So the docstring, the doc there is short for documentation, right? So docstring are used for documenting your functions or class or whatever it is that you're trying to like whatever it is that you're trying to like build, like, or you're trying to define. So in this case, we are trying to define a function called add, and what that function does is add two numbers and return the result. So you can have a docstring that explains all these things, that explain what the function do. So you see that the docstring uses triple quotes at the beginning and triple quotes at the end. So unlike comment, the comment just use one hashtag. The docstring actually use triple quotes. So these are the syntax details that you need to be paying attention to. So the docstring, once you have any triple quote at the beginning, just know that Python will automatically start counting everything that follows it as a docstring. So that's what it's basically called, as a docstring. So you have opening triple quotes and then closing triple quotes. So in between these two, you can have anything. So you can have as many lines as you want. So unlike comment where it is restricted to a single line, docstring can be as many lines as you want. So I can come here and start writing anything. Whatever it is I write inside the docstring will be considered a docstring. Okay, so it is a way to actually document some portion of your code that you can refer to later on. I would actually dive deeper into it when we look at function, but just take note of that. So comment and docstring go hand in hand. So this is how you use these two. This is how you use these two in Python. All right, let's go to what we have next. We are now going to be looking at arithmetic operations. So all these things I'm going over, these are just basics. We are not going deep into just basic things that you need to know, and they are needed for the more advanced stuff that we'll be learning. So it's essential that you still understand and you pay attention at this point. So they might look very simple and they might look for some of us that are already familiar, you might just be waiting for us to move on to the next thing. But those that are very new to Python, this is so important. Like, don't even play with it, right? We get to a point where we might be doing something and then that thing we are doing is tied to what we've discussed previously. So you might not be wondering why you are not understanding it. So it's because you've not understood these basics that we are discussing now. All right. So let me just go over what we've discussed so far. So today we've looked at immutable and mutable data types. All right. I discussed that one. I showed us example and what mutability is and how we can actually do all these apply changes to a particular data type, indexing, and all of that, right? So we also looked at type conversion, converting from one data type to another data type using inbuilt functions like int, float, string, and the rest. So we now moved on to looking at print statements, okay, which we've been using for a while now. We now looked at comments and docstrings. So we'll be moving on to arithmetic operations. So arithmetic operation, they are the basic operations that we know in our mathematics class. So it's plus, minus, division, addition, subtraction, and all of that. So, but we have to know how to implement it in Python, right? So it's a good thing to know the basics and the concept, but implementing it in Python, knowing the syntax to use is very essential. All right, remember we are doing data science, and data science will involve a lot of numerical computing, right? To involve a lot of numerical computing. So you have to understand these arithmetic operations and how to use them in Python. So let's move forward. So we have the first one here, which is addition. Let me just go over them. We have addition, we have subtraction, multiplication, we have division, we have floor division, we have modulus, we have exponentiation, we have increment and decrement operations. All right, so these are the different arithmetic operations that we have in Python. So I'll just go over them one after the other. We are actually rounding up. So this is the final part of the class. So arithmetic operations. I'll be closing the attendance now. So if you've not signed, I don't know what you're waiting for since. Okay, so arithmetic operations. So I'm just going to breeze in through the addition, subtraction, multiplication. Those ones are very, very straightforward. It's what you know already. So if you want to perform, let's say, an addition in Python, what you just do is just the same way you write it out, right? Normally, you can come and say 2 plus 2 is what? 4. As simple as that. You are not adding any other thing. You are not trying to do embellish it kind of. It's just straightforward. 2 plus 2 is 4. That's why I said Python is like literally the simplest programming language that we have, right? So you can come and say any number that you want, just put the plus sign. So this sign that we have here is an operator. All right, so it's called an operator. So we have different operators in Python. It is an addition operator. So it's used to add two numbers together. So we can put this. Python automatically does the calculation for you under the hood. So you can use Python as your calculator, right? So you do that for addition. For subtraction, is the same thing. You just change it to the minus sign. All right. So once you put the minus sign, the Python automatically knows that you want to subtract this number from this number. So if you do that, it will give you this. If I come here and change it to minus, to give us 0 as usual, like very, very straightforward. So for division as well, the same thing, right? If I change this operator to this particular symbol, it's going to represent division in Python. So this will represent division in Python, /. So / is division sign. So if I run it, it's going to divide 2 by 2, and then it's going to give us this value. So division output are usually in float. So the result we get whenever we perform a division is usually a float value. If I come here and put 3, you see that I have this 2 divided by 3 is 0.666. So you can see how the output looks like. So that's basically the arithmetic operations we have. We have, if I come here and change this to division, I'm going to get I'm going to get this. All right. So the other one we have is your multiplication. Multiplication, just change it to your asterisk sign. So this is the multiplication operator in Python, your asterisk. So all you need to know is just to know which operator is used for which particular arithmetic operation. So the asterisk is for multiplication. If I run it to give me this, to multiply 2 and 3 and give me the value. If I change this to the asterisk sign, I'll multiply the both of them to automatically give me the output. Right. So the ones that I'm going to be focusing on are the ones that you're not necessarily familiar with. They are the floor division, modulos, increment, and decrement operators. All right. So let me just go over them. So we have floor division, we have modulos. Okay, we also have exponentiation. I think this one we are familiar with it. Is raising something to the power of something. We have the increment and decrement operators. So these are the things that you actually even be using more in Python, and they are probably not as common as the other ones that we've looked at. So let's just look at what they are. So remember I told you about division, which is 1//. So it divides 2 by 3 and it gives us our output. If I add another / there, you're going to see that it gives us an output, but a different kind of output. So this is still dividing. This floor division is still doing division. The difference between this floor division and our normal division is in the kind of output it gives. So our normal division will give you the complete output or the complete value of the division. But floor division, we remove the decimal part of the output and return just the integer part of the output. So if I come here and I say, let's say 7 divided by 3, right? Normally 7 divided by 3 will give you 2.33333335. If I now change this to a floor division operator, which is double / and I run it, you see that it gives me just the whole number, the integer. It doesn't round up to the nearest whole number. It just removes the decimal part and returns the whole number for you, or the integer. Let me make it 9. Let me make it something that will give you a decimal. So 11 divided by 3 is 3.6666, right? Now 11 with the floor division, dividing 11 by 3 using floor division, we give you just the whole number and remove it. So there are situations or like instances where you need just that whole number. You don't need the decimal point, you just need the whole number. You use floor division in those situations or in those scenarios, right? So just be noting all these things, because time will come when we are going to use these things we are talking about now. You'll be like, oh, so this is how we actually implement, or this is the use case of these things that the tutor was talking about, right? So they will be very, very useful moving forward. So that is for floor division. We have modulus. Modulus is represented by a percentage sign. All right, so we have a percentage sign here. What this does is that it basically gives you the remainder of the division. While floor division gives you just the whole number, modulus gives you the remainder. So normally, let's use a simple one here. 7 divided by 3 should be what? 2 remainder 1. All right. So that remainder is what is going to be returned during during modulus operation. So there are also situations or scenarios where you use modulus operation in Python. So this is what it does. Like, this is basically what modulus does. If I say 11 divided by 3, this should be what? 3 remainder what? 2. So the 2 remainder is what is going to be returned. If I run it, you see that I'm going to be getting 2 as a remainder. That is basically it for floor division and what modulus. So for exponentiation, I think this is also straightforward. It's just raising something to the power of something. the syntax for exponentiation is double asterisk. So if I use one asterisk is going to tell Python to multiply. If I use double asterisk, it's going to tell Python to raise that value to the value that is in front of it. All right. So 2 raised to power 3, 2 raised to power 4, like that. So that's actually very straightforward. So we have I think the last one here, increment and decrement operators. Okay, increment and decrement operators. So I don't know much about other programming languages, but I think if you want to increase a particular value in other languages, you might use double of that particular operator. Let's say plus plus. I think it happens in JavaScript. You can use minus minus, right? And just like that, you can basically just use this thing repeatedly to increase a particular number. But in Python, it is different. If you want to increase a particular variable by a number, you use these 2 operators here. These are what we call increment and decrement operators. So the increment operator is the one with positive sign and equal to. So let me just give you an example here quickly. Okay. So let me say num is equals to 5 or 6. So if I want to increasing num by 1, right? So if I want to increase this particular number by 1, instead of me to just go through the normal step by saying num is equals to 6 plus 1, right? Or num is equals to num plus 1, right? This will give me what? This should give me 7. So if I print it, to give me 7, all right? Because I'm increasing num, which is 6, and adding 1 to it. Now there's an operator called increment operator, which is a shortcut to do this. And still the same thing I've been saying, there are specific situations where you will need to use these kinds of operators, all right? So I can come here and do the same thing and say num plus equal to 1. So what the statement here does is the same thing as what the statement here do, right? They actually do the same thing. It's just that this one is a more compressed form of this one that we have here. So num plus equal to 1 will still give us the same num. All right. So you can see that I'm increasing it by 8, right? So as far as this one is 6 here, to increase this one 7, then this 8. Okay. So this is an increment operator. That is what it is called. It is called an increment operator. So for decrement operator is I think that one is also straightforward. It's a reverse of this. So we have minus instead of plus. And if you want to decrease by 1, you can use 1. If you want to decrease by 2, you can actually put any number here, not just 1. You can put 4, you can put 5, you can put anything you want to put, okay? So that's basically how you use increment operator in Python. Let's say I come here and I decrease this by 2. You can see we have 6 here. So 8 has been 2 have been removed from 8 to give us 6. So I think this is quite straightforward. This point will be driven home when you are giving your assignment for this, and I think it will help you practice what we've done and just look at everything in a broader concept and context. All right, so that's actually what we have for today. The aim of today was just to wrap up with the basics. So these are just the basics of Python. We've looked at overview, importance, application, syntax and indentation, variables and data types, type conversion, print statement, comment and docstrings, basic arithmetic operations. So these are the basics of Python. Like, just please go over them as much as you can to grasp the concept. I don't expect you to 100% understand everything that is here, but at least you should have an idea of Python basics. So if someone should ask you to just write a code in Python, you should be able to do that. And at this point, you should be able to at least write a 1-line code or a 2-line code in Python. Right, so that's the aim of this class, is to like give you that foundation. All right. So some of these things that we discussed today, we are going to expound on them moving forward. They are just like a part of a whole. So when we get to that whole, we are going to like now bring it up and open it and dissect it further. So this is just an introduction to give you a glimpse into what we're going to be doing. So for instance, this docstring that we have here, we're going to be looking at how we can call the docstrings and how we can actually access the function docstrings as well. So so I think that's it for today's class. I'm going to take just a few questions and we're going to call it a day. So in the material here, we have external resources that you can look at. So if you click on any of this, it will take you to a link, right, that will help you understand better what is in the material. All right. So please make use of all means to drive home the lessons that we've looked at today. You can go back to the video that we're going to be uploading. If you missed any part, you can as well. You definitely get your assignment, so it will help you as well to practice what you've done. If you want to decide to practice outside and just like follow what I've been doing so far, that's fine. It's actually, so the main thing is just to make sure that you keep consistent with what we are doing. Make sure that you're exposing yourself consistently to Python. That is how you're going to get better. That's how you're going to get to know all the things that we are going to be looking at. If what you do is just to come to class and listen and you don't really engage that much, you don't do assignments, you don't watch the video, you don't look at other resources, you're not really going to go anywhere. You'll just be there, and the knowledge you'll be getting will dissipate and probably forget most of them. So that's just what I have to say. Tomorrow's class, we're going to be entering the more advanced concepts in Python, right? So it's going to get more interesting as well. So if you've not understood perfectly what we've done today, please go back to the video. Please go back to the video. All right. So that's going to be for today. I'm going to be taking just a few questions. I need to leave as soon as possible for some reasons. So please, if you have questions, just raise your hand. I'll bring you up. All right, Sunday Salahu, I see you. Iyanu, Job, Ahmad, and Nigeria. So just 5 of you, I'll be taking your questions. All right, Salahu Sunday, please ask a question. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Good evening, sir. And thank you so very much for the class. It was really an enlightening one. Okay, my questions. I have 3 questions.
Okay.
Number 1, is it possible on the same document that you have a single quote as well as a double quote? I mean, should you stick to one that you are using, or you can play around with the 2 as you proceed in the project?
Okay.
Then I don't know if you got my question, sir.
Yeah, I got your question. Just ask all your questions. I'll answer them at once.
Okay, so number 2. Okay, sir. Number 2, if a comment comes before a code, will Python still recognize that will Python still recognize the code, or that comment has changed the whole thing? And then lastly, I want to ask that, is it possible for someone to assist another person outside the group? For instance, somebody is finding it difficult to maybe download the Anaconda or do something. Is it possible for somebody to assist the person outside the group so that we don't create so much distraction on
All
the
right.
group?
Thank you very much. I think I've gotten your question. So for your first question, yes, you can have varying quotes, the different quotes in the same document. It won't change anything. It won't like cause Python to crash or whatever, right? The only thing that it will do is just to create inconsistency, right? It's going to make your code look inconsistent, because once you are going through it, you would have in some places double quote, while in some places single quote. It won't really look nice. All right, so the best practice is you stick to one in a particular document. If you're going to be using double quotes, use double quotes throughout. If you're going to use single quote, use single quote throughout. But mixing them won't change anything. it won't affect your code. It won't make your code not run, right? It's going to give you the same output as you would get. All right, so that's it for that. For your second question, I think I answered that while I was teaching. I said that if you put the hashtag in front of your code, it makes that code not executable. Python is going to skip that particular code. So if there are instances where you don't want a particular code to be run, so you just comment it out. So that's what we call it. We comment the code out and then we run your code. So that particular code will be skipped. So this is another function of comment. The first one was just to explain your code. Second one is to like skip certain code from being executed. I hope that's clear. And your third question, like, please feel free, like anything that is going to help you or another person in this program, feel free, as long as it doesn't violate or interfere with the program itself, right? It doesn't cause any issue whatsoever, right? So if you're outside of the platform, you can do whatever you want to do, right? You can engage with whosoever you want to engage. I actually like push for networking. I'm actually big on networking and connecting with people. So this is a platform that will give you opportunity to meet with different persons, to even make friends. So this is the best place to make friends that are learning the same thing as you are learning. All right. So feel free to reach out to people you have questions, not just the tutor and not your class rep. Other people are capable of answering your question. And if you feel you can answer someone else's question, you can also do that as well. All right. Just make sure that it doesn't cause any form of nuisance, or it doesn't disturb the group whatsoever in any form. All right. So I think that should answer your question. So next person here was Job Ademu Job. Let's ask a question. You're on mute now. Please move fast. I have to.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Good evening, and thank you for everything we do appreciate. My question is regarding the assignment we were to submit last week. For those who didn't submit the link on their dashboard, will it count to the negative for them?
No, I said it at the beginning of the class. It affects your assignment in any way.
Okay,
The
sir.
link
Thank
I
you very much, sir.
explained before was for your Jupyter notebook. When you start submitting your Jupyter notebook, you are expected to submit a link. But for this particular assignment, submitting a link is optional, right? It's
Okay,
optional. It won't affect you.
it's okay. Thank you, sir.
All right. Okay. We have I think Nigeria Nash. I think I called you. So you're on mute now, Nash.
Hello, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Good evening.
All right. Good evening, sir. Please, the question I have is when we are trying to change the content of a dictionary. So, dictionary, the way it's arranged, as you said, is type and then value, right? The example we have is like, for example, if the type is H, then you can just put like dictionary in brackets, that square bracket H, then equals to what you want. But my question is, what if we have multiple values in a type? Like, what if the type is state, and then we have like Abia, Plateau State, and then like Imo, right? But I want to change that Imo to another different state now. So how can I change that one in the value? Do I have to like still rename, like still mention everything with the new one that I want inside? I don't know if you get it.
Okay. So you're asking if, okay, for instance, your dictionary key has a list instead of a single element, and you want to change an element in that list,
Yes,
a
sir.
particular element and not the entire list, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So yeah, it's actually possible because the data type you are using as a value is a list data type. So once you get that key is going to be replaced by the value. So the value in that case the value in that case is the list. Please give me a second. Attempt something. Give me a second. All right, so sorry about that. Yeah, you can actually do that. You can change the item in a list that is within a dictionary. Since a list is mutable, and you can also change the content of a dictionary. Yeah, it's actually very possible. I would have demonstrated it, but there's no time. I would have demonstrated it, but there's no time. So I'm just going to like leave that to you to practice and probably just see how working with it. So the thing is that I have to attend the class at this point. I think for those of you that have questions to ask, like I really
All right, no problem, sir. Thank you.
any other questions can be directed to the group chat. Once I see the question, I'm definitely going to and answer everything. But at this point, I'm going to do a quick dive. So I would normally do just highlight those things that we have to take right in the group, and I believe we all learn from it and to go through when I have the time and we have to go. I'm also sorry that I'm so sorry that I really apologize for the actual ending of the class. It's actually very essential that we end the class now. So thank you very much. We're going to be made available and the material already made available. So do with that, I will look through the material.